September is ending. High latitudes begin to breathe fresher air. From the air, the earth appears as a vast and brilliant mosaic. The fjords of northern Norway spill like molten silver into the sea. The highlands on the border between Sweden and Finland rise in muted blues and dull greens. This is a huge area to cover, but not for a single resident here. Fast, relentless, built for harsh winters, comfortable in warmer seasons. Here he dominates the thermals like no other, the golden eagle, Aquila crisitos. The bird is surveying a domain that will soon be tested by ice and endless night. Far below, rivers narrow into black bands, and reindeer herds begin their restless drift toward winter pastures. Even from the breathtaking heights, the eagle perceives the shimmer of fish beneath the surface of a fjord, the nervous bustle of capercaillies in the heather, and the distant smoky grey silhouettes of migrating cranes. But unlike the travelers, this hunter will stay. His broad wings were built for storms and dim light, for the harsh arithmetic of Arctic darkness. Hell is about to freeze over, and any remaining warmth will soon fade. The boy must survive to see another year. Dawn filters through Finland's Ulanka National Park with a thin layer of silver. The sky pales, turning from charcoal grey to pearly. Mist curls through the birch groves and clings to the moss and lichen. Frost forms a crust on every fallen leaf. High above, on a pine branch, a female golden eagle flexes her talons and flaps her wings, scattering tiny droplets of ice. The largest male is standing next to him. They launch themselves together when the first wind blows. A single movement of their enormous wings lifts them above the pine tree canopy. The air is cold and thin, and the thermals are weak at this early hour, so they struggle at first. Deliberate strokes propel them upward until they find the slight lift they seek. Behind them, a dark-eyed young man struggles to rise. His primary pupils open widely as he tries to imitate his parents. Every minute in this dim light is a lesson to be learned before winter silences the land. Below, a honey buzzard, Pernis apivorus, curls south towards Africa. The soft, grey silhouette glides across the pale sky like a leaf in a stream, for now it shares the same air as the eagles. But it will soon disappear. However, this couple and the young adult must prepare for the harsh boreal winter. They remain. They are made for the cold. Their bodies are covered in down, and their feathers are oiled against the wet and the frost. From this height, the world stretches out like a living map. Streams meander through the forest. A red squirrel scampers across a fallen birch trunk. Its tail is a short strip of rust against the pale winter bark. Of course, it would be completely invisible to the human eye from this height. Frosted lichens glisten faintly on the trunks. Far below the ridge, a snowshoe hare darts out of a shady thicket. Its white paws gleam against the mottled snow. Above all, the female golden eagle watches. Nearly a kilometre high, he notices the flash of movement. It may seem extraordinary or even impossible, but for the golden eagle, it's quite routine. Its eyes are tuned to ultraviolet light, which reveals the slightest contrast of fur against the snow. Vision 8 times sharper than a human's allows him to read the twitch of a mustache, the movement of a tail. Even the faint glimmer of moonlight in an exposed eye. The hare's heartbeat is almost his own. For 3 lean days he has hunted without reward. A vole disappeared under a sheet of ice. A grouse was startled and swept away by a sudden gust. Now his muscles tense in an empty stomach. The cold demands fuel. She waits on a wind-eroded granite slab, pressed and smooth feathers. She lets the faint sun warm the black of her primaries. The squirrel stops, head tilted, but it's not its prey. It remains completely motionless, wings outstretched. Then the hare leaps out of hiding, leaping onto the open bark. Its pupils constrict to pinpoint size. Without making a noise, he launches himself. The wings open suddenly and then fold tightly to the sides. Gravity takes over. She falls. The air howls around her body, though it remains silent. Frost swirls behind her in eddies. She falls faster than any bird of her size should, an estimated 200 kilometers per hour. The hare doesn't look up. She can't. The shock wave of her fall arrives barely a second before she does, too subtle for the prey to read. Below, the forest is calm. A miscalculated gust of wind, a sudden change in the terrain, and the dive could fail. But his line is perfect. At the last moment, she explodes. The tail feathers are fanned out. The primary is open to capture air. His body arches, the wings break, claws, each curved like a scimitar and propelled by an estimated 180 kilograms of force, extend forward. The blow is a blur. The hare lets out a single cry before the world closes in. Its grip closes, piercing fur and bone in an instant. She flaps her wings once, twice, and elevators. The inert body is lifted from the ground. Muscles built for the mountains propel her skyward. The weight of living flesh does not bother him. He climbs above the tree line, the hare dangling in his arms. Below, the squirrel disappears among the birches. Silence returns to the valley, broken only by the rustling of feathers as the fed female golden eagle rides the updrafts. Meanwhile, the young man watches. This is the skill you must learn. Her parents will feed her less with each passing day, forcing her to kill or starve. She tries. When descending from a ridge, it closes its wings, imitating the hunched posture. But the timing is not right, its angle is shallow, your speed is too slow. The ptarmigan she's targeting bursts into a sudden storm of white feathers and disappears into the birch. The young eagle rises again. In time, he will learn to hunt as well as his mother. She must do it to survive. She can fly now, but she doesn't leave. For weeks, she will stay by her parents' side, following them every step of the way. Each day, they lead her further into the valley, showing her the best ridges to climb, the hidden corners where hares leave their trails. They don't utter a single cry of comfort. Instead, they communicate by flapping their wings. The sudden fall that means hitting, the long planning that means waiting. Other birds of prey choose a tougher path. Peregrine falcons expel their young from the nest a few days after their first flight, leaving them alone to perfect their swooping skills. Goshawks abandon their chicks as soon as they can hunt, but golden eagles persist. Parents and young share the northern sky for many weeks. They hunt together. The adults only offer her a few pieces that fall from time to time, enough to keep her alive but hungry. This slow separation is its way of ensuring its survival. By the time the first snows seal the valley, it will have mastered every current and every ambush, and when the time comes to ride a thermal to the outside world, it will detach itself. By now, the afternoon is slipping quickly into dusk. The family goes hunting again. They patrol the low ridges where reindeer trails wind through the pines. The air is thin and cold, but golden eagles soar through it without much movement of their wings. Below, the snow piles up in drifts that hide every track, but their eyes miss nothing. The male bows slightly and begins hunting. It glides along the ridge, head tilted to observe each winding path. Its outer primaries flex upward like fingers, reducing drag as it glides through a sudden crosswind. The feathered tarsi on its legs, thick as winter fur, protect the tendons from the impending impact. Muscles coil beneath the dark plumage. A careless red squirrel scampers across a fallen pine tree. The male folds his wings and drops down. No cries, no warnings, just the sudden rush of air and the soft thud as the claws close around the tiny body. Frost rises in a swirl of glitter as he jerks upward. Another murder achieved by the family. The young man follows, flapping his wings to keep pace. He hasn't eaten at all for 2 days. He lands on a granite outcrop, holding the limp squirrel in his hands. With a slow, deliberate motion, he tears into the carcass, parting the fur, and then, without looking at it, offers a strip of meat to his daughter. She leaps over, takes the offering, and swallows it in quick bites. Eagles, however, are not just hunters. They are opportunists, and the northern forest offers abundant possibilities. In the shade of a fir tree, a lynx drags the body of a young reindeer. The carcass leaves a bloody scar in the snow. The cat eats quickly, wary of the open space, and then slinks away into the darkness of the forest. The eagles wait. When the lynx leaves, they descend. Their hooked knife-like beaks tear through skin. The crows arrive almost immediately. They spin in loose spirals and land in an irregular circle, croaking their challenge. The male spreads his wings to block the feast, but the birds persist. They dive from all sides, snatching strips of meat. One lands directly behind the young woman, pulling the remains she guards. She turns with a whistle. But the crow has already left. The afternoon grows deeper. Tomorrow will be a new day, a new opportunity. As the light fades in the valley, the large birds take flight once more into the purple sky. Dusk comes late in this far north, but the cold sets in quickly. The male leads the way up the ridge. Behind him, the female and her young follow. They are not looking for prey now. They are looking for a place to take refuge. Golden eagles do not return to the nest once the breeding season is over. Instead, they choose high, windswept perches, ancient pines, in the shelter of a steep cliff, a granite point unreachable for the lynx or the wolverine. Tonight, the couple heads toward a rocky outcrop that juts out like a prow over the valley. The juvenile stays close. Before settling in, they do a final reconnaissance. The male circles the darkening slopes, searching the air for the faint scent of carrion or the rustle of a lingering hare. Satisfied, he drops down toward the cliff face and lands soundlessly. His talons automatically grip the edge of the rock. The grip will remain firm even in any night wind. The female joins him, her mantle feathers rising and settling in the cold. It smooths it down to trap a pocket of warm air against its body, then tucks a paw into its feathers, conserving heat. The youngster lands last, a little awkwardly. There is no nest here, just the bare stone and the vast silence of the north. Still, it's enough. They hunch in the darkness, their eyes squinting but their senses alert, their feathers overlapping. Occasionally, the male moves, lifting his head to feel the wind or to preen a ruffled covert. The young mimic him, nibbling at the tips of their primaries, aligning each barbule so that the wing cuts cleanly at dawn. Meanwhile, far to the east, a rough-legged falcon is moving towards Lapland, another traveler fleeing the cold. The night is long here, and it grows more every day. In the valley, the rivers are covered with a thin layer of ice that cracks gently under the weight of drifting leaves. In the distance, a fox howls. The eagles sleep, their heads bowed beneath their wings, their hearts beating slowly, their feathers strained against the stalking cold. Morning comes reluctantly. The sky does not shine with gold, but with a pale, pewter-colored light. The frost on the ground is thick enough to bite through fur. The juvenile wakes up hungry. She moves on the branch, watching the valley below for any sign of life. His parents are already on alert. Another day of school begins. They leave the henhouse and the hunt resumes. Slow spirals on the river where fish sometimes glide under the ever-thinning ice. A slide down the cliff walls where ptarmigans hide among the rocks. A sudden plunge as a vole breaks out of hiding on the snowy shore. Every success feeds them all. At the end of October, the birch trees lose their last leaves and the first heavy snowstorms roll in from the Barents Sea. The wind drives ice down the cliffs of the Norwegian coast, salting the black rock with a thin crust that cracks beneath your claws. Here, the male takes the young on longer flights, testing their endurance. They soar above the fjords where white-tailed eagles gather along the ice-free water. When a mountain hare launches itself down a snowy slope, the young one reacts with sudden precision, folding its wings and diving to the ground. The attack isn't perfect, but it's sufficient. Snow springs up around it, and when it settles, the hare rears up with its claws dug in. His parents watch from the ridge, then throw yourself into the wind. Now twilight falls before mid-afternoon. The forest below fades into a single shadow. The wind brings the scent of deep winter. The cub cleans its beak on a frost-blackened branch. It has learned to kill. Soon it must learn to survive the long months ahead. Night falls with a final blast of cold. The family settles back into its pine shelter. Dawn comes late to the northern forest. A cold silence settles over the granite ridges. Birch leaves glisten with frost as the first light filters across the valley. The male raises his head, the nictitating membrane sliding across his eye in a quick, glassy blink. He takes a step forward and drops from the branch. The air is harsh and scented with frozen moss as he stabilizes at treetop height. Another day of hunting and feeding. In the middle of the morning, the family climbs higher. Thermals are weak in autumn. Every meter of altitude is the result of strong muscles and long, powerful strokes. The male leads in wide spirals until the tree line is well below. The tracks of field mice are left scrawled on the frozen sedge. Crows circle black over a distant ridge. a herd of reindeer moves through drifts of fog. The female scans for every blink. Hunt. It is successful. Feeds. When the sun reaches its highest arc, still low and cold, they perch on a granite outcrop warmed by a faint light. The wind blows heavily over the ridge, ruffling the down hidden beneath their protective feathers. They face it, letting the air comb them to dislodge mites and kill parasites. One by one, they delve into the hidden bones. They stick their hooked beaks into the old marrow. Then he throws the molds, tight balls of skin and bone, onto the ledge. When their hunger subsides, they clean their beaks on snow-covered branches. The cold sets in, and the sun sets over the horizon, even though the day is only half over. They climb again, taking advantage of the late-day updraft that glides across the ridge. The flexible outer primary wings curve upward to reduce drag in turbulent autumn winds. The return flight is slow and measured. The young practice sudden dives and quick recoveries, learning to use their tails as rudders. They'll need to master this when the ground freezes and prey becomes scarce. The parents observe but don't interfere. Dusk falls quickly. The birch trees glow orange and then fade to ash as the first stars appear. Frost hangs over the valley floor, and the rivers are covered with a thin layer of ice that cracks gently under the pressure of the current. A pale moon rises over the ridge where the falcon flew that morning. They return to the tall pine where the day began. Difficult times await them. The long night has begun. Darkness settles like a living being on the mountains of Abisko. Rivers freeze and form ribbons of glass that resonate and crack as the ice moves. Salt foam drifts inland from the Norwegian Sea and crystallizes into white frost on every cliff. The perches that once stood firm now gleam like black ice. This is the treacherous winter, a test of survival. The miner, now separated, must face the challenge alone, but the experience is no less difficult for the couple. Paired for life, they must survive together. The couple rises from their perch before the sun rises. Their large wings beat with a dull silence as they ascend. Meanwhile, white-tailed eagles, Haliaeetus albicilla, patrol the fjord. Their wings shine silver and their broad tails billow like sails. They share this northern realm with golden eagles, but live very differently. Salt droplets splash their plumage as they skim the surface. At a height of 100 meters, they can read the surface like a map. A slight turbulence betrays a school of herring. A single ripple marks the rise of a salmon. Their eyes, perfectly adapted to penetrate glare and reflection, focus on the brilliance. With a sudden fold of enormous wings, they bow, not in a loud plunge, but in a measured arc. Claws extended forward. Water explodes around him. They get back up with a helpless, squirming fish in their hands. High above, golden eagles watch. There are no fish for them. Their talons are suited for prey with fur and feathers, not slippery flesh. The long, narrow wings that carry them through the mountain thermals would stop in the thick air just above the sea. Its dense, feathered legs protect it from a hare's kicks. Or the antlers of a young reindeer, but it would crawl in the water. Meanwhile, the wind blows across every ridge. Temperatures drop to 30 degrees below zero. Their feathers cling to the cold, each one oiled and layered. Their legs are covered in feathers up to their claws, thick as fur, and the skin beneath is warm with blood. Still, the cold bites. Hunting this season is very different. Snowshoe hares disappear beneath drifts of snow, their fur white as the ground. Lemmings burrow unseen into tunnels. Eagles roam the slopes, scrutinizing every shadow. A mouse's tail twitches nervously on the surface of a frozen marsh. Seen instantly, filed, ignored. It's not worth the energy expenditure. Midday is little more than a faint blue glow. The pair are crossing a barren plateau where a herd of reindeer is pushing through the hardened snow. An old cow limps. The female leans heavily, sliding down a long downward slope. At the last moment, the reindeer bolts. The strike fails. She turns upside down again. They climb to a cliff outcrop that catches what little sunlight the Arctic allows. A short break. The wind ruffles the hidden down, carrying the ice crystals that have formed on the tips of the feathers. They remain side by side, their talons curled on the rocks slippery with sea frost. Below, a gerfalcon, Falco rusticulus, crosses the fjord at full speed. It flies so low that the tips of its long, narrow wings brush the salty mist. Sleek, compact, with every muscle primed for sudden acceleration, the falcon's body is designed for an explosive chase. It hugs the contours of the shore and then rises in a sudden vertical turn, scattering a flock of ptarmigan feeding among the seaweed-covered rocks. A bird doubts. The gerfalcon folds its wings and swoops down, striking with precision. Dinner is won in seconds. High above, golden eagles barely turn their heads. They drift along on the faint midday thermal currents, scanning the tundra. In winter, the air is icy, smells are lost, and the usual traces of blood and decay almost completely vanish. Still, they find what others don't: a dark fold in the snowfield, a set of small footprints frozen in mid-step, the faint sheen of fur where the wind has left a trail, a red fox killed here. Their prize, half a hare, lies hidden beneath a veil of powdery snow. To a crow, the scent is buried, lost, but the eagles sense it perfectly. The female dips one of her broad wings, slowly spirals downward and lands soundlessly. She covers the find, arching her wings like a living tent. The male settles in beside her. Together they begin to feed, tearing at the frozen skin with hooked beaks designed to cut sinew and break the ice that hardens flesh. The first crow arrives shortly after. It records once and is soon followed by 3 more. They leap closer, coming within a few feet of the eagle's talons. The pair spreads their wings even more powerfully. A crow dares a swift lunge and is met with a charge that sends it tumbling backward. A rough-legged hawk circles downward. As soon as it gets too close, the male eagle soars with a sudden burst of power. The intruder moves away. The body is still his, for now. But the eagles don't waste energy on endless defense. After a while, they allow the bolder crows to capture some strips of meat. Sharing a little is easier than constantly fighting. They will return tomorrow and the next day. A slaughter like this survives in the intense cold, trapped in the snow. Storms roll in off the sea without warning. The wind whips the cliffs until they shake. Snow slides sideways, erasing both land and sky. The couple crouches on a leeward ledge, their backs to the gale, their wings crossed like shields. Hours pass, frost spreads across its peaks. But they don't move. Their hearts slow down, saving heat. When the storm breaks, they rise again in a sudden and mysterious calm. During the long weeks of darkness, their lives are reduced to movement, sight, and the next meal. Every day is a gamble. They follow wolf tracks, knowing the pack might leave behind remnants of reindeer meat. Once, they arrive before the wolves. A young male reindeer lies motionless, frozen to death. The female lands first, covering herself tightly while the male keeps watch. Nothing so far. Then a ripple in the stillness. Grey shapes materialize between the birch trunks. Wolves. The lead wolf stops, muzzle raised at the scent of blood and birds of prey. Wolves are wary of freshly killed prey, fearful of injury, even when the prey is already dead. They circle, testing the air, watching for the strange silhouettes of the large birds. The eagles do not move. They tear at the frozen flesh with swift, brutal movements. Their beaks crash against the bone. The wolves approach, describing an ever-widening arc, their muscles tensing. For a moment it seems like a stalemate, but there is no rival here. The lead wolf lowers its head and advances with a low growl. Without a cry, the eagles take flight. They retreat to a black granite spur. The night deepens. Wolves tear flesh from bone. Well fed, they return to the forest hours later. Only when the tundra is empty do the eagles return and land again next to the reindeer, which are stiffening. Patient opportunists, they will return tomorrow and the next day until only polished ribs remain. As night falls, they perch near a snow-covered pine tree. The feathers overlap so that heat passes from one body to another. Together, they will survive the harshest winters, one day at a time. February brings the faintest promise of a return. The days lengthen by the minute. The eagles feel it in their blood. Their flights become longer, their calls more frequent. They begin to soar over the cliffs where they nested last year, testing the old site. Still, winter persists. At night, the temperature plummets again, and the rivers burst with water as the ice expands. Eagles take flight before dawn. Below them, white-tailed eagles still work in the fjords, fishing where the tide and current keep the water open, but golden eagles head inland, drawn to the highlands where the reindeer herds begin to move and the hares begin to move. Another day of scanning, hunting, and feasting. March arrives with a sudden flash of brilliance. The sun rises higher. The snow softens on the southern slopes, revealing the brown backs of voles and the tracks of ptarmigans. The pair rides the first strong thermal currents of the year. They have survived the long night. Their eyes, sharper than ever, scan the awakening earth. A hare sleeps under the snow. The white fur blends perfectly with the snow, but they have already detected it. The female bows down sharply, folds her wings and lets herself fall. The snow bursts in a pale explosion and its claws strike. The hare never wakes up. He drags the body to a snowdrift and spreads a wing to cover the entrance. Only a faint line remains, a mark so subtle even a crow could miss it. This hiding place will last for days, hidden until hunger calls. A ghost crosses the ridge as the prey hides. Broad white wings brush the still air. A snowy owl soars. Each wingbeat is a wide, silent sweep that barely stirs the frost. From a distance, the owl appears to hover rather than fly. Only when it dips does the faint grey mottling betray its shape. The owl is hunting. Beneath the hardened snow, voles tunnel along narrow paths. The bird tilts its round head, concentrating every vibration in its ears, hidden beneath its feathers. It hovers briefly, its wings in a shallow V, catching the faint rustle of fur on the ice. Then it falls. The snow explodes into a cloud of dust. The owl stands up again with a mouse clutched tightly. Then he walks away. The male golden eagle finds carrion before dawn. A reindeer leg lies wedged in a rock crevice, rigid as iron. It anchors itself and picks at the ice with its beak, pounding again and again until the icy crust gives way. The frost cracks under the pressure. He tears off strips of meat and swallows them whole. Below, a wolverine circles in the gloom, heavy-shouldered, patient, waiting for an opportunity. The eagle covers the carcass, its wings spread to conceal its feast. The wolverine approaches and then hides in the shadows. But feeding isn't its only concern. The season has changed. Golden eagles also feel it inside. At dawn, the pair of golden eagles soar together in the still air. Their wing beats are slow at first until a faint thermal current spirals up from the southern slope. The male climbs higher still, circling widely. He dips one of his large wings and swoops down. At the bottom, it lights up and rises again to meet its partner. She soars to meet him, her feathers ruffled in the dim light. They come together, their talons locking for an instant. Together, they somersault downward. The pair separate with a sudden snap of wings and ascend again, their spirals even higher this time. This is not a game. Courtship flights have begun. No intruding eagle will cross these ridges without a fight. The first light of April spills over the Arctic ridges. The frost still clings to the trunks of the birch trees. But the sun has a new warmth. A new life is about to join the couple. Winter ice still grips the rivers. When the sun warms the surface, meltwater rushes beneath and through the crust in sudden, violent waves. The male eagle watches from a leaning pine tree. He tilts his head and squints as he senses the movement of an ear in the slush. A half-drowned hare struggles for survival on a collapsing snow bridge. The eagle folds its wings and falls. A moment later he stands up, and the hare hangs limp. From the shade of the fir trees, a common goshawk, Accipiter gentilis, takes flight, startled by the flapping of its large wings. It opens them wide and quickly closes them again as it glides through the trees. This forest is the goshawk's world. In these narrow alleys of trunks and branches, speed and agility reign supreme. He also came hunting, drawn by the same restless hare. Moments before, he had waited, crouching on a shady branch. But the golden eagle attacked first. Now the goshawk banks sharply, moving its tail like a rudder as it ascends just enough to clear the canopy. For a moment he seems to challenge the intruder, but the difference in size is absolute. The goshawk is made for sudden ambushes in the forest, not for dueling with a giant in the open. With a swift movement, it flies away, skimming the treetops in an undulating glide. Down below, among the pines, it disappears again. Soon there will be another hunt, a capercaillie frightened from a burrow in the snow. A squirrel miscalculating a jump. At noon, the thaw accelerates. Ice sheets crack and rumble along the river, causing tremors in the valley floor. The female golden eagle glides low, scanning the dark crevices where the snow gives way to running water. She spots a dead salmon stranded in a melting pool. Upon landing, she covers it with her mantle, her wings spread to hide the prize from the crows. As the day warms up, insects hatch in sudden clouds. ptarmigans scratch in the wet snow, searching for the first willow shoots. The young, now agile and strong after winter's harsh lessons, put their skills to the test. One falls too early on a ptarmigan and crashes into a snowdrift, raising a white cloud. The young bird straightens up, shake off the dust, and it goes up again. His brother watches and learns. Nearby, a merlin zips by in a patch of grey, chasing the same prey. The afternoon brings a different rhythm. The pair of golden eagles returns to their perch. They share the remains of the hare, tearing strips of flesh with their hooked beaks capable of peeling sinews like wet paper. The long night has hardened them. The dense down still traps the cold air. The outer feathers close tightly to protect themselves from the sleet that occasionally falls from a late cloud. Their vast and efficient lungs easily absorb the fine oxygen of the mountains. They can go days without eating if necessary, but they don't have to, not anymore. With each sunrise, the valley becomes a little greener. The willow buds swell, the streams run free, field mice and lemmings venture out of their burrows. Food is no longer scarce. By the end of May, the bond between the couple is unmistakable. They soar together over the melting river. The male carries twigs and clumps of grass to the cliffside nest. Golden eagles live long lives and defend the same territory for decades, so the nest isn't just a pile of twigs. It's built over decades. It is characterized by layers and layers of branches. Some are even bleached silver from seasons past, embedded deep in the rock, 3 meters wide, heavy enough to withstand mountain storms. The male has a wide distribution. He breaks sturdy birch branches, snaps off pine limbs. Each branch drags in the wind as he backs toward the cliff. He lands hard, his claws scraping the stone. The female greets him with a low cry. He grabs each branch, nails it to the trellis, stamps his foot, tests the hold. There can be no gaps. A careless change could condemn the chicks to a fall. Now bring moss, tufts of grass, pine twigs oozing sharp resin. She presses them against the heart of the nest. Her chest shapes the cup, a perfect cradle against a cold night and intense midday sun. A fresh green glows on the ledge. This is a signal to any passing eagle. This place is claimed. Down in the lowlands, other birds of prey choose another path. Ospreys maintain lighter pole platforms on dead logs and pylons. Peregrine falcons need almost nothing. A simple scrape of gravel on a steep slope is enough. Rough-legged falcons build mounds on the ground lined with feathers. These disappear with the first winter storm, but the golden eagle builds for eternity, stone underneath, branch upon branch above. Dusk sets in. The female turns around and then sinks into the newly lined cup. The male stands guard on a rocky spur, black against a coppery sky, then a new dawn. As warmth spreads, the Arctic tests all creatures. A sudden storm rolls in from the Norwegian Sea, covering the peaks in fresh snow. The eagles wait for it to pass in their shelter, their feathers smooth and their eyes half closed. When the clouds part, they launch themselves into the wind as if nothing has changed. The sun now stays out late into the night. A young golden eagle soars over the ridge, its broad wings catching the morning thermals. It circles once, then twice, testing the air of a territory that doesn't belong to it. Below, the resident male watches. He crouches on a granite ledge. A single movement of its enormous wings lifts it into the sky. The intruder looks down cautiously but continues on his way. The resident male climbs higher and higher. He never calls. At the peak of its climb, it suddenly folds its wings. The fall begins. It drops like a spear. The young eagle swerves, startled. A flash of talons, a sharp snap of wings, and the chase begins. They circle over the valley. The young bird attempts a desperate barrel roll, turning around to show his claws in defense. But the resident comes closer. He dives again and again. Finally, the intruder gives in. The victor slows and then turns back toward the cliff. Below, the female watches from a black spruce tree. The pair has protected this valley during the darkness of winter. They will protect it during the bright months to come. Around him, the north is accelerating. Winter loosens its grip, but only by a few inches. Under the fir trees, a red squirrel races across the snow, its tail a russet flag against the white. It stops, snout twitching and ears pricked, listening for the faint swish of wings. Sensing no threat, it digs into the base of a birch tree and picks a mushroom. It has dried into a leathery disc since last summer's brief fire. A quick bite, a fleeting glance, and the squirrel disappears again into the dark tangle of roots. Above, a pair of crows flutters and squawks. All winter they've followed the resident golden eagles, memorizing every carcass the raptors carry off. Their patience will soon pay off. The eagles know the crows are watching them, but they don't waste their energy on them. Big birds will swoop in for scraps when the opportunity presents itself, and sometimes the eagles allow it. In the distance, in the marsh, a female moose walks cautiously through the meltwater. The hardened snow crumbles beneath her hooves. Behind her, a newborn calf waddles through the slush, its knees splattered with icy mud. They stop to listen. A distant cry rides the wind, a long, continuous note. The cow raises its big head, ears moving, nostrils flared in search of the scent of danger. She knows that sound. Up above, golden eagles call to each other. The youngster clings to its flank. The mother shifts her weight, placing herself between the sky and her young. Eagles rarely risk swooping down on an adult moose, but those talons can slam an unsuspecting youngster. One false step, one stumble, and the raptors could attack. The couple now stands up together. They spiral upward in a mid-morning thermal current. Their wings barely move. Each updraft carries them higher until the valley shrinks below. From this height you can see the brilliance of the fjord, the slow turn of sea ice, the pale outline of distant peaks. They glide toward a slope where the snow slides in sheets from the sun-softened ledges. Below, a ptarmigan scavenges for shoots, its white plumage already flecked with summer brown. The female lowers her head, a slight fold of her wings, and she drops. Below, the ptarmigan freezes. Then, with a sudden snap of its wings, it takes off. The bird darts sideways and then hurtles down the slope in a wild zigzag. Its plumage blurs against the rock and the uneven melting ice. The eagle corrects its descent, banking with difficulty to follow. Its talons extend sharply. But the ptarmigan twists again and curls into a fold of dwarf birch, the branches closed behind him. The eagle rises and leaves the dive. She runs up the slope and climbs. Failure is always a possibility, but another persecution will soon come. On a nearby ledge, a peregrine falcon, Falco peregrinus, crouches, its feathers pressed against the rock. Its eyes follow every flicker of movement on the white slope. Then, without warning, it drops. The fall begins as a controlled one. With its wings spread out towards the body, the falcon descends at an estimated speed of 300 kilometers per hour. This is twice as fast as the golden eagle's sharpest dive. A sudden turn. A ptarmigan is startled by the wave of shadows. The falcon swoops down, attacks, and the impact is a sharp crack in the air. For an instant, predator and prey fall together. Then the falcon rises again, clutching the prize tightly. But that fiery burst has exhausted his small body. With his heart pounding, he must return to the cliff within minutes or risk exhaustion. A high ledge offers him safety and a narrow, sun-warmed stone platform. There, he tears into his prey in quick, efficient bites, wasting nothing. Above, golden eagles watch. At midday, the couple rests on a granite platform warmed by the sun. The pair stands side by side, eyes half closed, facing the constant wind. They ruffle their underfeathers, sending a cloud of loose down into the breeze. The tiny mites scatter. The male tilts his head toward the female. A low whistle escapes his beak. He sneaks up. She responds with a subtle shrug of her shoulders and a slight spread of her wings. He climbs onto her back, his claws tightly curled so as not to pierce her skin. For a moment, their large tails fan out and overlap, brushing the tips of the lichen. A brief contact. The cloacal kiss. The moment is fast. It jumps down and spreads its wings to stabilize its landing. They're together again. The female shakes out her feathers. He preens a loose barb on his chest and then leans down to touch her beak with his own. This isn't the first time. It will happen again, perhaps at dusk, perhaps tomorrow as the season progresses. Meanwhile, the morning frost softens and transforms into a moist glaze. The whole river valley is agitated. A sharp crack breaks the silence. The ice breaks away from the shore and slides into the dark stream with the sound of breaking glass. More fragments follow, falling like slow-motion avalanches into the meltwater. The river finally awakens. A vaulted hut made of mud and sticks trembles on the other shore. Then a beaver emerges from a cloud of bubbles, its fur slick and shiny as if oiled. It stops, whiskers twitching, as its eyes adjust to the sudden flash of light. Between its teeth, it holds a willow shoot, a fresh green against the brown water. With movements of its paddle-like tail, it carries it to the low dam located downstream. Every branch is in place. The gaps are sealed with dripping mud. He works steadily, almost reverently. Golden eagles circle in the distance, their shadows drifting over him like passing clouds. He doesn't panic. In the water it is safe, at least the golden eagle. Every few minutes he stops and raises his blunt nose to the sky. In the birch thickets, the foxes have already shaken off the night's chill. A vixen trudges slowly through the softening snow. Her red fur is aflame among the pale trunks. She lowers her snout to a fresh vole track and freezes, ears pricked and eyes bright and calculating. A jump, a brush of paws, and she disappears into the tangle of weeds. Minutes later, she reappears with only the scent of meltwater on her fur. The fox continues on her way. Like the beaver, she is aware of the sky. She raises her nose often, savoring the breeze. The faint, musky scent of eagles overhead, the pungent, coppery aroma of breaking river ice. She hunts her shadow, but she is not afraid of them. A fox can disappear among the trees in a single leap. Further back, where the birch trees thicken and the light falls with a mottled gold, a wolverine waits. It lies between shadow and the glare of the sun. Its fur is dark brown, streaked with cream. The dense coat still retains the thickness of winter insulation. Muscles ripple beneath him as he shifts his weight, his black eyes fixed on the river. He has heard the cracking of the ice and the snapping of the beaver's tail, and he knows the meaning of those sounds. The wolverine doesn't fear eagles either, but he understands them. He has followed them before, smelling the carcasses they leave behind. A deer brought down by the cold, a hare caught in a sudden fall. When eagles finish, wolverines begin. He bends down, claws flexing, listening to the hiss of the water and the sigh of the trees as the valley warms. Patience is his weapon. Above all, golden eagles soar. They see every move below. They do not descend. Soon dusk falls, bathing the valley in an amber light. The eagles take flight again after a successful hunt, their bellies laden with meat, and take advantage of the last thermal currents toward their nighttime refuge. Below them, a lynx glides among the alders, its ears pricked and its paws silent. In the north, night never really falls in May. The eagles perch together in a tall pine, heads bowed. Around them, the sounds of the thaw linger. The murmur of distant rivers, the sharp bark of a fox, the drumming of a snipe in the twilight. They rest, but all their senses remain alert. Shedding never happens suddenly. The old primary feathers fall out in a careful sequence, replaced feather by feather. Even during the long months of renewal, they never lose their ability to climb, dive, and fight. The spring sun casts sudden flashes of brilliance over the rivers. The melted snow dazzles like polished glass. For most creatures, the glare would burn and blind, but in the eagle's eyes, the lens pigments change and darken. Vision remains sharp. At dawn, the valley stirs again. A pair of cranes circles low, their cries echoing off the cliffs. They fly in circles at low altitude over the water. Their calls echo against the stone walls of the valley. The male protagonists, stretched neck, eyes scanning the shallow waters where the reeds bend in the morning breeze. Behind him, the female follows, her body tilted slightly to one side so that the rising sun reflects off her feathers. Below, the swamp awakens. Frogs croak from hidden corners and small insects float up in the warm air. Their shadows pass over a half-frozen pond where minnows move swiftly under a film of ice. With a sudden change, they fall further down. Finally, they land on a narrow spit of mud, landing so lightly it barely disturbs the water. For a moment, they remain motionless, heads held high. Then the male bows and spreads his wings in a graceful arc. The female responds with a small nod. They will soon move into the reeds to feed and groom themselves. But for now, they remain in the cold light. The days go by. The season continues. June is here. The Arctic sun never sets. It spins in a slow circle over the horizon. The cliffs of Lapland are hot and dry. For resident golden eagles, this is birth season. Plenty and relentless demands. High on a wind-eroded ledge lies the nest. Now several meters across, the nest has grown larger each year, layer upon layer of bleached pine branches and antler bones. In its center lie 2 eggs, the color of old parchment and lightly mottled with brown. Pine needles line the hollow. The scent repels insects and masks the warm smell of indoor life. The female crouches, her enormous wings spread like an umbrella. The sun swirls and swirls, and the light can scorch. Her feathers shade the fragile shells and keep the heat steady against the sudden air currents in the valley. Every time you change your weight, you turn the eggs. This keeps the embryos safe and evenly heated. The male is rarely far away. It flies around the cliff with its wide, firm wings looking for intruders, other eagles, marauding crows. Even a daring fox might dare to climb. When it lands, it does so with a gust of wind and a piercing cry. Sometimes it brings a fresh pine branch, sometimes a hare or capercaillie clutched tightly in its talons. Food arrives less frequently now. Both birds feed sparingly. The female will not leave the eggs for more than a few minutes. In this way, the male takes on most of the hunting. When he returns with the prey, she carefully stands up. Stretch your wings tight and rises into the updraft. His glide is brief. A quick flight to the river or a descent across the meadow to drink a drink. Then he hurries back to his vigil. While she is gone, he enters the nest and lowers his chest. Thus the hours turn into days. The wind whips the ridge. The rain lashes and freezes. The sun shines white through the thin Arctic clouds. If a crow gets too close, both birds take off at once, causing the first one to circle away. When the sky clears, they land again. Across the lake, an osprey floats motionless. It drops in an instant, bending like a throwing spear and hitting the surface with a burst of water. A fish glistens in its talons as it rises. With a few strong strokes, the osprey ascends, the weight of its prey pulling with each stroke. Water flows from the tips of its wings as it gains altitude. It doesn't stop to eat. Instead, it heads toward the opposite shore, where a lodgepole pine juts out from among the rocks. There, hidden among the branches, awaits a platform of branches wide and deep. Its nest. The pair calls from the nest. Two fluffy chicks raise their heads and open their beaks. Ospreys typically begin their breeding season earlier than golden eagles at the same northern latitudes. This pair's eggs have already hatched. While the golden eagle pair keeps their own eggs warm, their neighbors are already busy feeding the chicks. The days have already passed. A new morning, although the sun has never set. The male leaves the nest at the first glimmer of light. He rides a thermal current that rises from the hot rock and ascends until the valley floor becomes a green blur. From this height, any movement is visible. A hare casually nibbles at the rejuvenated grass. The male folds his wings and drops down. The entrance is silent. The claws strike with a force of 400 pounds per square inch. The prey falls instantly. The hunt is swift and merciful. It feeds just enough to satisfy its hunger and then drags part of the prey to a shady hollow. The moss and cool earth will keep the meat fresh. He will return with select cuts for the nest. When he brings food, the female stands up. Two chicks have broken their shells. They are pale. Its down is a light cream color. She cuts strips of hair into narrow ribbons, each bite small enough to swallow. The chicks bite with surprising force. Flies swarm in the heat. The resinous pine needles do their work, but the parents also help. They stir up the bedding, ruffle and shake out the feathers, and fan the chicks with their half-open wings. When the wind picks up, they face it and let the breeze cool their furry chicks. Down below, life comes alive with the season. Arctic hares graze among the willows. Their fur is no longer pure white. Spring brings a wash of grey and brown that blends them against the thawing earth. A female grazes apart from the others, her ears moving to the rhythm of every murmur of the wind. His sides swell with life under their fur. Unborn leverets kick. He stands on his strong hind legs and tests the air. The scent of willow shoots surrounds her. High above, a shadow flies. The male golden eagle. The hare freezes. The eagle moves on. The female lowers her head again, tearing at a new shoot. Now she must eat constantly. When the babies arrive, they will be born completely covered in fur. For a few fragile weeks, they will hide under these same willows. Nearby, a male hare watches, twitching nose, ready to warn with a strong blow of its hind legs if any danger approaches. Together they graze and listen. Midday brings heat even in this northern world. The female perches on the edge of the nest, her wings slightly raised to vent the warm air trapped in her plumage. The chicks gasp, their beaks open. Below, a brown bear wades into the river, turning over rocks to catch salmon fry. It does not pose any threat to the nest. The afternoon is just a softer shade of the day. Thin, harsh screams cut through the mountain air. Still covered in pale down, the chicks raise their narrow beaks to the sky. The male must bring back meat again and again. In these first few weeks, each chick can swallow its own weight in meat each day. A hare, a capercaillie, even meat from a corpse if luck permits. When the male finally appears, the cries increase. His claws grab a young hare, limp and already stiff from the cold. He lands with a gust of air. The female advances and tears the carcass into thin strips. The chicks launch themselves into the attack, fierce eyes, snapping beaks. One wins the most, the other waits, squealing, until the next piece is offered to him. Day after day, the pattern repeats itself. The male emerges at dawn, taking advantage of thermal currents until he becomes a speck on the peaks, and then swoops down at breakneck speed on any prey the tundra offers. By mid-morning he returns, and in the afternoon he sets out again, sometimes making 4 or 5 kills in a single day. The female watches over the nest and feeds with the chicks. She swallows the leftovers herself only when her pleading subsides. By the second week, the down darkens to a smoky grey. The fine feathers fan out like rows of spikes. Her wings lengthen rapidly. The primaries already catch the mountain breeze as they beat. They jump from one side to the other of the enormous platform of sticks. The female follows every movement, spreading her wings to protect herself from a fatal stumble. 3 weeks pass. The nest smells of resin and sun-dried meat. The young's feathers acquire a dark brown sheen with golden edges. Now they stretch out and punch the air. Their screams are higher-pitched, less like babies, more like their parents. By 40 days, their bodies have tripled in weight, their bones have thickened, and their muscles have hardened for flight. The female still feeds them, but with less enthusiasm. When the male returns with prey, she takes a portion first. She understands their needs, but she must also conserve her strength. Soon he will draw them out. The nest now seems cramped. The chicks pace the edge tirelessly. One hops onto a nearby branch of the old pine, scratching the bark with its claws. Another follows, half hopping, half sliding through the narrow gap. These short, frantic leaps are their first tests. The parents watch from nearby cliffs. They call to the chicks with soft whistles. Sometimes the male arrives with a freshly caught hare or capercaillie, but he doesn't land immediately. Instead, he circles back, the prey dangling from his talons, and calls again. Hunger awakens the chicks. They lean outwards, wings trembling. When it finally lands, it's not on the nest, but on a branch several meters away. It tears off a piece of flesh and waits. The chicks shuffle forward, stretching across the empty space, then fall back, uncertain. Their mother sings softly. A youngster jumps closer to the edge, his wings half spread. A sudden gust lifts the long feathers. For a moment, the chick is propelled upwards. The chicks should now hop or flutter towards the food. Parents bring food, but they place it further and further away. First 1 meter away, then 2. The young begin to launch themselves from the edge of the nest, flapping furiously to land on nearby ledges. Down in the valley below, fox cubs struggle in the grass, hares graze among the willows, and midges soar in glittering clouds. Across the lake, osprey chicks are also fledging. Her nest crowns a half-drowned fir tree. 2 chicks perch on the edge, their wings half open, their feathers still soft and pale at the edges. 1 chick launches itself first. It falls like a stone before the wind picks it up. For a moment it wobbles, its tail whipping wildly to maintain its balance. Then it stabilizes and begins to trace a slow, wide circle over the shallow water. Her brother calls from the nest. Down below, the parents are already at work. The female floats, head down, eyes fixed on the glitter of the fish below. With a sudden stop, she folds her wings and launches herself into the water, splashing. She reappears, her claws clutching a writhing perch. She goes up to the sky and calls to the circling chick. The young osprey approaches her, responding with a faint cry. Its flight is clumsy. It flaps its wings irregularly. The male arrives next with his own prey. He perches on a branch near the nest and tears off a piece of meat, offering it to the second chick, which was still on the ground. Hunger drags the reluctant young man to the edge. The wings tremble, then he jumps to look for his food. By dusk, both young people have already taken some fresh air. Golden eagle chicks must also take flight. By midsummer, they've almost reached maturity, taller than a human arm and almost as wide as their parents. When they spread their wings, they measure about 2 meters. They still have small tufts of down along their necks, but they are ready for their first real flights. The female spreads her wings. She pushes a chick to the edge. The young eagle wobbles, talons clutching branches. A gust of wind lifts its long feathers. For a moment, the chick floats. The male circles above, talons empty. He sweeps lower. The chick leans forward. A single desperate flap of its wings launches it into the void. The body lurches downward. Instinct takes over. The tail extends. The primaries unfurl. The wind eases the weight, just enough to give it its first taste of flight. The landing is clumsy. The branches scratch the feathers. The claws can't reach the ledge, but the chick recovers quickly. Parents call again. Encouraged, the second chick steps forward. It takes longer. It flaps its wings more forcefully. It almost slips, but in the end it manages to get out of the nest. The adults guide them with soft calls and cautious shadows, flying close, showing them how to navigate the invisible updrafts. Every duck, every turn is a lesson. How to close their talons, how to maintain balance in sudden gusts, how to spot prey at a distance. The chicks make short dives, throwing himself over the edge of the cliff. Then he returns to the nest to rest. At dusk, the chicks can maintain altitude. They perch on narrow ledges, observing the valley floor and learning to gauge distance and speed. Their parents remain close by. Day after day, hop after hop, dive after dive, the chicks gain confidence. Soon they will no longer need the nest at all, ready to hunt, to survive, to claim their place in the vast northern skies. Hunts are now longer. The male guides the chick along the ridges, teaching it to read the elevation of the air along the rock. It swoops down on a hare, misses, and comes back up. The young bird mimics the dive, clumsy but bold. The female still guards the nest, but soon both chicks will follow the adults on full tours of the valley. They will learn to store food, to cover a kill when crows approach, effortlessly climb thermals. Your eyes will sharpen, their feathers will molt in a careful sequence. At the end of August, the first sign of change arrives. The sun sets for the evening, grazing the horizon with a faint orange glow. The shadows stretch a little further across the tundra. Berries ripen on the heather, and the cry of migrating cranes drifts in from the south. The golden eagles hear it. The young now fly with easy grace. They've been practicing for weeks. The whole family flies over the fjord. Below, a pod of porpoises breaks the water in playful arcs, while a distant bear fishes in shallow water for the last salmon of the migration. The ospreys are returning home. The eagles surf the last thermal of the day. Soon, the young people will disperse, each to claim their own kingdom. But for now, the family holds the sky together. Life beneath them pulses with tension. A lynx glides silently through the tall grass. Its mottled fur blends with the speckled earth. It stalks a pair of young reindeer grazing on fragile saplings. The calves stand hesitantly, their snouts pressed against the snow-damp ground. But the mother pack senses the danger and closes ranks, forming a protective wall of legs and antlers. The lynx stops, calculate. Then he melts back into the shadows. A better opportunity will present itself soon. Further away, a herd of musk oxen grazes on a ridge. Their massive forms kick up dust in spiraling columns that float in the warm, rising air. They're always on the alert, raising their heads at the slightest sound. Their horns gleam in the sunlight. Reindeer graze on the other side of the valley, soft, plaintive bleats. The sound attracts the attention of the male eagle, but the family moves on. High above, almost unnoticed, a peregrine falcon swoops down on its prey. Below, foxes weave their way through the clumps of birch trees, their snouts alert to sniff out every hidden morsel. Crows circle, their sharp eyes scanning every abandoned carcass. Golden eagles soar above them all. The long night will soon return. The air already whispers about winter. Snow from silence. The days keep passing by, then weeks. Soon the birch forests turn crimson. The icy wind blows through the valleys. Golden eagles feel it first. The year is changing. The couple climbs through an amber sky. Young raised, territory defended, flight taught. They spiral together. Days shorten. Adults hunt at great distances. Snow falls. Frost thickens. Still, the eagles endure. Dense down traps heat. Lungs extract oxygen from thin air. Fasting lasts for days. In the distance, last year's juvenile is now a solitary, independent predator. She glides over the copper-stained birch, her wings long and steady, catching the faint thermal currents that ripple across the tundra. Alone now, the vast expanse below her is both a playground and a challenge. Every scent, every swish of fur, every shadow matters. She scans the snow-covered ground. Eyes dart away at the slightest movement. A hare leaps between stunted willows. It bends, half crouching, claws ready. But the hare is quick. It rises again, circling, learning, gauging. A missed shot. Another chance tomorrow. She drifts past a distant ridge where a pair of rough-legged hawks are flying south. The pale wings shine like winter ice. Their migration is easy. His eyes follow them briefly. He will stay here in the icy north. At noon, he lands on a windswept crag, his feathers ruffled and his talons clutching the stone. He smooths his underfeathers, shakes off the frost. Hunger is constant, but skill grows. She spreads her wings again, rising into invisible currents. Sometimes she circles near the territory where she was raised. Below, the adult pair swirls in a high thermal. They call. One day she too will claim a valley, raise her young, and teach them the patience and precision she now pursues alone. But not now. Female golden eagles do not reach full sexual maturity until they are 4 to 6 years old. For now, she practices. It looms. He bows. Survive. Meanwhile, the two young birds take flight from the nest for the first time without the immediate shadow of their parents. They spread their wings, their feathers catching every eddy of wind. They circle above the cliff, hesitant at first, banking, testing the invisible currents. The parents perch on a nearby ridge. They don't call, they don't chase. Instead, they've left small caches of meat hidden in crevices. A chick swoops down after a hare. The prey hides, and the young eagle soars again. Its sibling glides on a small thermal, drifting into the wind. Every day, food appears less frequently. The parents move further away, leaving the chicks to hunt, learn, fail, and try again. Claws clack, nails grip, and feathers sharpen. As evening falls, the chicks perch on distant ledges, overlooking the valley that was once their home. Parents have gone even further. Young people are learning to feed themselves, read the earth, to claim their own space. Soon they will rise and disappear behind the ridges. Behind them, their parents will remain united throughout the year and throughout their lives.